I came through on the third wave. Something special about the third day. What's up, y'all? Tunnel Rats to Terraform. Um, and again, in honor of the release of not only Your Arms Are Too Short to Box with God, but Legacy, the first Tunnel Rat album in 20 years. Um, it's exciting, man. I will again skip going in order. We're on the Soil EP in the regular Tunnel Rats to Terraform trajectory. You know what I'm saying? But in honor of that, let's go through here. For you that don't know, for you that are new to the Patreon, Tunnel Rats to Terraform feels a little self-indulgent, but from what I understand, it's been great. You know, it's kind of a journey through all the lyrics I've ever written, that at least you've heard, you know, and the stories behind them, the recording process, what I was thinking, so the response. Yeah, just like it's like a history podcast, only for only my raps. Anyway, I figured I'd jump in right now and talk about the song Third Wave off the Legacy Part 1. If you have the vinyl, you know that Legacy has a Part 2. If you're just doing the streaming versions, which is fine, Part 2 is going to come out in August. Yeah, so Third Wave special. I'm gonna go through those lyrics. It's one of the only like solo songs on the record. When we first started making this record, we had tried and failed many times to get this together. Peace 586 was really the driving force into being like, I'm not dropping this. We're going to do this. You know, we use the app FYI a lot. Will.i.am's video or app. Shout out Will.i.am and his East LA song. FYI is an incredible app if you are a creative or someone who just has ideas and need a way to have them all in one place and to communicate those to each other. It's at some point I'll do some sort of tutorial around it. I love it. If you've clicked the link in my bio of my socials, you've seen FYI. Yeah. So here's what's dope about that song and about this process. Like I said, Peace was the driving force. He was just sending us beats after beats after beats. Daniel Steele agreed to get upon it. We finally got a group text that was like serious. And then Dave Reynosa, which is Daxon Zane's father, which is who we named the Tunnel Rats after because he was a tunnel rat in the Vietnam War, which if you don't know what that is, it was a strictly volunteer position within the U.S. Army because the Viet Cong, they were digging these networks of tunnels where they were putting, explosives and bombs underground inside of the, war zones. And the tunnel rats were strictly volunteer, where you had to be small, you had to be just the right size and just the right temperament to go into these tunnels, to go find the bombs and defuse them. Super dangerous, underground. So think about it for a rap group. Your job is to go into the underground first. Trailblaze, a dangerous job that doesn't get a lot of fame, that doesn't get a lot of glory and props, but it's probably the most important gig in there because the Army can't come with any semblance of safety unless the tunnel rats did their job. That's the picture. So he had passed away. And in the interim, we were like, in mourning and just being like, man, we really want to like really finish some work for him because he had told us many times before he had passed, like, you guys need to do another record. You guys need to do another record. And, once you get a certain age and life starts happening and everybody's got different, there's so like Dax and Zane, obviously siblings. Journey's their cousin. Rafi started hanging around when he was 15. Like, so there's just so much history there that's like families intertwined. So just on top of crew history and just normal growth and curmudgeonness, there's family history, that predates any of us rapping together. You know what I'm saying? Um, Dax's father, Dave, had severe PTSD and really didn't get healthy until around the time I came around. And they're all full grown adults by then. So, like, there's just so much other situations and happenstances and baggage that in history that just existed even before we start hitting record. Fast forward, Olga, which is Dave's wife, Dax and Zane's mom, she passes away, and it was like a really like a slow. Dave passed away fast. He fell off a ladder working. He's just a king among men. He's probably, from what I don't know the Dave that raised Dax. I don't know that Dave. That Dave, again, severe PTSD. Undiagnosed. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I didn't know that dude. I knew the genuine, loving, worship songwriting, guitar playing, sweet, old, like, Mexican man who was just tough as nails and worked like a freaking, it could outwork us all in his 60s and 70s. He could outwork us all. Like, I knew that Dave. Who just adored his wife. That's the Dave I knew. But when Olga passed, just this twirling hippie, song singing, head in the clouds, garden, prophesying, just hers was a slow death. And since, like I said, we had functioned such as such a family, it felt like a death in my own family because that's what Dave and Olga meant. After this, it was like, okay, once the mourning was done, because Zane in a lot of ways was her main caretaker, there was room to like consider doing another album. Dan, everybody, Dax is the type that's like, I'm just gonna write to everything. I'm trying to get y'all excited. I'm gonna write to everything. He can be very overbearing, but once he started turning in verses, and these verses were like, these are really good songs. It was like, okay, something's happening. The first one was On Top that he turned in, and we were like, oh, we rapping. Sojourn is a member of Future Shock who had, there's a lot of history there too. All this happened before I became a tonal rat. Was the original Tonal Rat crew from OG Hex's Hip Hop Shop, which there was an event put together that featured LPG, Rafi, Brainwash Projects, which is Pigeon John and B Twice, and Future Shock, which was a 3-man crew from San Diego. These were underground rappers who had some sort of a Christian sort of tendency towards them. Everyone after the show really felt a connection. They went all back to Dax's house. He made tacos for everybody. They kicked it, and that was like 1993. That was like the birth of like what became Tonal Rats. The Experience album. Yeah. Or was Experience? Earthworm was the Earthworm was the LPG record. Yeah, Experience was the Tonal Rats record. Yeah, so that's what it became out of that moment. As the crew grew, Crewvention, they meet New Breed, they meet Sev. Crewvention was an event that used to happen in Boston, like Boogie Monsters and just these like East Coast dudes who were also underground rappers like us that had a faith to us. Macho and Elsie, who are siblings. They come, they meet. So anyway, they had, I mean, they just had such star power. And from what I understand, kind of Future Shock felt as though they were not getting the attention that they needed to put out their projects and move the way they wanted to move. Jason, who is Red Bones or Our Red, Future Shock, and Dax were, they bumped heads a lot because they were very similar in their leadership, their thinking, their age. So it was an issue. So they left, and they were like, we're going to do what we need to do, for whatever reason. Like I said, I wasn't around for this. So Sojourn, as a member of Future Shock, left with Sojourn, but I don't think Sojourn ever really wanted to separate from the collective, and the other two don't rap now, Ajax is a showrunner for many a television series. He was, we're talking like Duck Dynasty was his idea. Like a very successful member of Future Shock, like a very successful in TV and film. Bear Grylls, his show. Yeah, that's Ajax. Crazy. Anyway, the time comes around, Sojourn's back. We do the Tunnel Rat run that I'm a part of, which is why I say I am part of the third wave. So the first wave was that crew with OG Hex. That was Future Shock, LPG, Rafi, Zane, that first wave. The second wave was New Breed and Sev and what became the Up Rock albums, right? Tunnel Vision was the second wave. But when the second wave was happening, I was finishing college, or I was finishing high school and going to college. And it was in college that I met Dirt, the beat maker. We met in Art 101, Art 100 class, my freshman year, his sophomore year of college as art majors. Just one of the, prerequisites that you have to take before you get into your specific discipline. I was going into either illustration or drawing and painting. Dirt was going to go into graphic design. And as you know, Dirt became the designer for all of the artwork. Dirt had got down before me. I was not around for, Dirt was around for 360, which was again a part of the first wave. I wasn't around for that. So by this time, I was, my little crew in the IU and my cousins, called Subhuman Tactics, 15-year-old prop, battle rapping. I was already a regular at Foundation, which was our open mic. I'd been to Blowed, I had made not really a name, but just hip hop was such a participatory sport. It was like we're all playing, you know what I mean? It didn't matter whether you were this was your career or not. We were all playing, you know what I'm saying? So I had this history already of just being a part of hip hop. Now, there was a moment in high school when I felt like God was calling me to something more, and I had stopped rapping for a little bit. And then through the encouragement of Ronnie Robles, who I mention all the time, Where You At, Ro is his social media. He's the one who put the spray can in my hand and the imagination expanded. He taught me graffiti, taught me all that through the encouragement of him. Tommy Holden, my boy Roger, showed me again that I can you can still. It was kind of silly because it was I would stop rapping. I taught myself not having an idol of hip hop, but I still dress the way I dress. I still, went to underground shows. I still used the slang. I still did graffiti. I still, you know what I'm saying? So it was like, fool, who you, this who you are. You just bring who you are to the thing. So I had started being like, okay, I'm gonna jump in these ciphers again. At lunch, or at on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and like the quad at Cal State Fullerton, there was like DJs. We would b-boy. You know, Black Eyed Peas played there, and it was just a good time to be in love with hip hop and have a car. You know, this is the time that like Elements is going down. Like Common had just moved here. Dilla was still alive. You know, so just like the underground scene. This is sound bombing. So like Mohsen Kweli and just a great time to be in love with hip hop and again have a car. This lands me back with, you know, big old oversized, you know, backpack full of like my black book, spray cans, headphones, and me and Dirt just in this class just was like, oh, he's ahead, I'm ahead. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, when it came to like knowing and loving hip hop, it almost felt like this like fraternity or secret society, if you will, when you would spot each other, because there would just be little signs where it's like if you had a Fat Beat sticker on your little tote for your paint, it was like, you know about Fat Beats, you know what I'm saying? Stuff like that, you know, just these like moments that would show you that like, oh shoot, like we are truly like a part of this sort of collective. In those talks, we realized like, oh crap, we're both Christians. He tells me what high school he went to, and I was like, that's literally around the corner from me. I was soon going to date a girl from that same high school at some point. But just realizing like how parallel our situations was, he had seen me freestyle in the quad and then connected, and I was just, and he was like, oh yeah, I make beats. And he goes, hey, have you heard of the Tunnel Rats? And I was like, no. But then he's like, yo, you're from West Covina. I was like, yeah, you know. So he was like, there's a crew called LPG, blah, blah, blah. He gives me the tape, and it gets freaky after that. I listened to it in the dorms, in my dorm, and I just was like, what? One, first of all, A Place Called Hip Hop comes on, and Journey mentions Shadow Oak Park, and I lose it. Because I'm like, who raps about Shadow Oak Park? West Covina had these series of rec centers that were around the city. So there was Cameron Youth Center, Palmview, right, and Shadow Oak Park. These were different parks that, you know, mapped onto the gangs, but they were like where you did like little after school programs, right? Shadow Oak and Palmview were equal distances from my home. And hearing him say that brought in these flood of memories that were fragmented but like very vivid. I took little like 80s karate classes, like 7, 8 years old, 9, 10, you know, to where I would have been a black belt by 12 years old. You know what I'm saying? Like if I'd have stuck around with it. And I think we moved right when I became a brown belt, and it just, I couldn't go back and forth. But our class was 6 to 7:30. So there was a like, you know, a like I think 4:30 to 5:45 or 5:30 or 5 to 6, something like that. That was for like the really, really early kids, and then there was the 6 to 7:30, and that was my class, and that was on Thursdays. And if you really got serious, you could take Tuesdays at Cameron Youth Center, and then Mondays and Wednesdays at Shadow Oak, right? If you really got serious. Ron Atmore was the our little karate, is a black dude out there, just the OG of the city, man. Rolando was my sensei, his Filipino dude. Um, anyway, at 7:30, the rec center was finally open to just like free usage for the what I thought were the big kids. And they were cool. I'm 8 years old. I'm in my stupid little karate thing. And then you see the 15-year-olds and they come in and they got their like cardboard and their skateboards and their jukebox, their beat, ghetto blasters, their boom boxes. And like, but they had to wait. You had to wait until the little kids were gone, you know? But I wanted to, I was like, what is this? I'm falling in love with hip hop around this time. Cause even in my neighborhood, my neighbors, Patrick and Brenda and Junior, were my sister's age. So like they're 6, 7 years older than me. And they're breakdancing, and pop locking in their garage. And it's just such a great time to be from out. We just saw Breaking 2 Electric Boogaloo, which takes place in Boyle Heights. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just such a dope time to be here and to be a young child, Like, I'm too young to participate, but I'm old enough to see what's happening. And you fast forward to me listening in headphones or at my little CD tape deck player in the dorms and being like, where have I heard this? It was, you ever heard something and been like, I heard this before? It just the eeriest. I was like, why do I know these people? I don't really meet everybody. Me and Dax talk on the phone around that time, but I don't really meet everybody until 2 or 3 years later. And in the interim was my time with like Glory, meeting LA Symphony, how I met Odd Thomas in the in-between time. So there's a whole space in between that I don't have anything to do with this crew because I was like, I don't know them. Like, these are the homies, you know what I'm saying? But I kept in my mind, like, I know this voice. And the voice was Journey's voice. And I was like, I don't know why I know it. So then as he's talking, I'm hearing more of him rapping. I'm like, this had to be those kids. The big kids coming after, like, it had to be. And if you kind of believe, God, I'm kind of like, this feels like destiny. So now let me get into the actual lyrics. This is the story behind. So that's why I say the third wave song is, it's all factual. So I came through on the third wave. I just explained there's something special about the third day. You get a third day resurrection. The song Collision had an eerie thing that Jern say. What I should have said was, the song Collision had an eerie theory, Journey said, because Theory was Dax's rap name at the time. And the song Collision is on the 360 tape, which I feel like that song made me realize like I had a lot to growing to do in my ability to rap. So the song is them two, it's two different beats and they each rap 4 bars, and it's supposed to be like it's 2 songs, right? So that's why it's called Collision. I got this rap game covered with blanket statements, illest pen player, I doctor up beats with patience. Come on, fam. Sick with word placement on pages, let us create their own house and home, deeper than singing baritones through catacombs. Anyway, if the wilder world's of gravity, so around the world I'm fly orbit. Universal hip hop shooting stars, I'm hitching rides. Control the tides, cause my pull is lunar in its pure state. I'm the future of rap, but y'all could call me fate. God, them dudes. 1996. Anyway, so I'm listening to them rap this stuff. The last verse with Journey, he says, drizzle Drizzle upon your mood, singing blues tunes with the moon. At the base of the universe, I stand up with hands up like noon. You know, noon when both the hands are straight up. Big banging with theory, my sidekick in verbal stomach. Big banging with theory, you know, I'm gang banging with theory. Dax. Waiting on proper dilating for new birth for rap creation. So what he was saying is a metaphor about giving birth, waiting on proper dilating for new birth of rap creation, right? My sidekick in verbal stomach, right? In stomach, waiting on proper dilating for new birth of rap creation. But I thought it sounded like waiting on prop, like waiting on proper, like waiting on proper, as in propaganda. Waiting on proper dilating for new birth for rap creation. I was like, oh, y'all waiting on me. You ain't even know. You was prophesying. That's the way I took it. I was tripping me and Dirt, waiting on proper. So, wait. The song Collision had an eerie thing. Journey say, waiting on proper dilating for new birth for rap creation. I was thinking this was written 6 years before we met, right? Which it was, because I met them at this church called House of Grace. They used to do this thing called Grace of Hip Hop, which is where I first saw all of them perform together in knowledge that this is the Tunnel Rats. Because apparently I had been seeing them for a long time, right? I was thinking this was written 6 years before we met, but that Elohim was saying soon comes another Jason. Jason, another Jason is a reference to Future Shock, because they already had a Jason in the group. That was Jason Brune. That is Redbone's, Sojourn's rap crew. I was tripping. Me and Dirt were both art majors. Like I said, what are the odds he knew the Savior? We were basically neighbors. He lived literally around the corner. Amor Hacienda, which is where Donut Hole, close to Boca del Rio, like all these spots that I shout out all the time was like, yeah, Amor Hacienda. There was what bank was that? A Chase Bank that was Washington Mutual at the time, which was Great Western before that, that my girlfriend at the time's brother worked at. Anyway, just such a drive-through 24-hour donut spot called the Donut Hole. It's literally a donut hole. Like, it's, you drive through a tube that they made look like a donut. It's great. Oh, man. Just a dope place to be. Amar Hacienda, though, I was in Valinda. Now, but West Covina means we was on the same team. Now, LA, like a lot of areas, a lot of times, especially big cities, a lot of times the big city is really a collection of smaller cities or neighborhoods or municipalities, some incorporated, some unincorporated. And the 626, which I always say is just the area code, you know. And essentially going east out of, you know, the downtown bridges, all the LA River, you know, I'm from east of the river. The first city on the other side of the bridges that like all the movie scenes are shot at is Boyle Heights. That's where I live now. Boyle Heights is the last neighborhood in LA proper. Now, Boyle Heights has its own city hall. Like, it's interesting how these municipalities work, right? And then after that is what is properly entitled East Los Angeles, which is its own unincorporated city. Keep going east, you got Monterey Park, which is essentially the northern Asian part of East LA, right? And that is the first 626 like location. El Sereno. Then there's Montebello, Rosemead, Temple City. If you're north, it's Monrovia, Pasadena. But if you're going down the 10 freeway where I lived, then it's El Monte, Baldwin Park, which is where that lefty gunplay boy is, West Covina, La Puente. Now, West Covina, La Puente, City of Industry, and Valinda is this collection of things that is really like, it's technically one city. It feels like, right? Like I could have put any of those city names on my address, my mail, and then mail would have came to my house. Uh, but the specifics of my little 5 block radius was called Valinda. Um, but if you go out my neighborhood in one direction, it's West Covina. You go out the neighborhood in the other direction, it's City of Industry. You go out north, it's La Puente. Like it's anyway. This little enclave was so special and unique that like there's so much talent that came out of it. It was just this odd little enclave. But him being from a part of that, like Bassett, which the area he was in, which is where Bassett High was, and Bishop Amant, which is a private, like, Catholic school. It's just so like unique to meet someone from that area. One, that was black, and two, that like loved hip hop the way that I did. So there was such a and he was a Christian. What are the odds he knew the Savior? We was basically neighbors, Amar and Hacienda, though I was in Valinda. But all of it, West Covina. He went to the same rec centers I did, that apparently Journey did. West Covina, this other rapper named Trek Life, Jansport J. West Covina means we was on the same team. So after we had this, sort of like, oh my God, are we best friends moment in college, he gave me a couple of tapes. And the tapes were Experience, 360, a few samples of Remember the Future, which was Future Shock's record, and Dangerous Minds, which was Rafi and Zane's crew when they were a group. Now, like I said, Dangerous Minds never saw the light of day. So he shot me a copy of Rafi and Zane's project, which never seen the light of day, but I was still blown away. Again, I worked at Shadow Oak Park. Now, I worked for the city of West Covina by this time, doing like after school daycare. This is how I eventually became a teacher too, was working at these like places. So I worked at Shadow Oak Park part-time, and on the way he slid, I listened to I popped the second tape he gave me called 360, right? This was when I worked at Shadow Oak Park part-time, and on the way I listened to the tape he slid me called 360. I'm feeling really dizzy, like, is this God or am I silly? Like, why do I know these guys? So then now I'm starting the story I told before. Now I'm starting to put all this stuff together, right? Like, I think that that's them learning what Cousins 3 was. There's a third cousin, that's Vinny, right? Vinny, who makes pools now. Like, it's so crazy. Like, and Dax has two half brothers from Dave's first marriage, and they were from my hood, right? Second tape he slid me called 360. There's something real similar. There's something real familiar. Imagine having fragmented childhood memories of the kids. Like a story, entering the rec center after me. I couldn't have been older than 10. Mom was running late that day. I vividly remember seeing, once I saw pictures of Dax and Journey as children. Maybe I'm putting it together myself, but I was like, I've seen them before. I've heard that voice. Whether it was the Victory Outreach churches, either way, I was like, I know them. So at this point, it was like, okay, there's too many dots connecting here. This has to be God's will. Dirt in my class, being from my neighborhood, me knowing I've heard these voices before. What's up, baby girl?
Hi.
Hey. She's in summer.
Can you check my work in my room?
I will, as soon as I finish this. Yeah, I'm almost done. Say hi to Soul, y'all. Thank you. So the yeah, so like I was like, there's too many dots being connected here. Like this has to be it. So I came through on the third wave. Future Shock was gone. Like I said, they've been on for a decade. By the time I got there, Tunnel Vision was done. Officially. Tunnel Vision was done and it was out. And I had listened to that next to the album that never saw the light of day that I made, produced by Els and Thomas, who I eventually made records with later. But at the time, I was like, I am not the mix, the master, my recording abilities, my rap. I was like, I'm not on par. Like I have a lot of growing to do. They were working on New Breed's album, Stop the Music. And of course, I was like, oh, I got a verse for this. I got a verse for this. And I really had to learn the like, wait, you know? And then after that, it was like Rafi's turn. And then after that, it was Sev's turn. And then finally, it was out of nowhere time. But it was like, we don't want, like, you can't perform these other songs you had because they're just not ready, you know? When we perform, like I'm very animated. It's like you're in a group now. You need to balance yourself. Just really like how to be a professional. What it meant to be a Christian rapper. Because this is when I found out who Cross Movement, all these, like I ain't know nothing about none of them. I'm just a LA dude. You know what I'm saying? So New Breed and Sev was on deck. Rafi became the big homie, coached me through the labyrinth of being a Christian rapper, right? They wouldn't let me rock until, so like seriously, it's like, no, you need to wait. Like you don't, when you write this verse, take this syllable out. Like you're not projecting well. You're like just all of the things that make you into a professional. When it is your time, it'll be your time, and we're building the studio. Like it's like on some of it was like some free manual labor. Like I'm going to people's auntie's house and like laying bricks and painting walls. You know what I'm saying? You're doing all these things that develop like a particular work ethic that they all kept saying, you're gonna get it and you're gonna get it faster than we did. You're good, you're gonna get dope. You're gonna be doper than all of us. You're gonna get it. So I mean, remember we make the Foot Soldiers record, we produce Cash One's record, we do the Battle for LA. Like all of this stuff happens while I only have that one Out of Nowhere album. So like even Out of Nowhere felt like this was not really conducive. I didn't get to pick those beats. They just gave them to me. It was like, we're gonna teach you how to write songs, hold the mic without cupping, all of that. Don't get used to praises. You'll probably never get none. A tunnel rat, love the work. You're done when it's done. And that, I think, of all of the like really shaping that I feel like the crew has given to me, it's those things where you just love the work, the fact of working. And you don't ask when stuff is done. You know when it's done because it's done, right? Y'all just saw my daughter come in here and ask me to check her work. She would always say, when is my room clean? I'm like, it's clean you're done when it's clean. Am I done? I'm like, well, is there still more things to do? Well, if there's still more things to do, then you're not done. You're done when it's done. You complete a job and you do it well, right? I think there was another connection between the two, is like my dad was a Vietnam War vet, so there was just these like too many overlaps that was like, okay, yeah, this is what we're doing. Now I wrote this song the same session I wrote "Love the TR Way," which was about Peace and his wife Missy, who passed away from multiple sclerosis, which also a true story. Me and Journey went to her hospice care in Riverside. Come on, baby, I'm about to finish right now. Her hospice care in Riverside, where she couldn't talk. She had lost her hair. She could barely move. She was bedridden, but you could tell she was happy because they stood right there on the side. He stood right there on the side of her bedside, and they brought a pastor in and they renewed their vows. It's the most beautiful thing I ever seen. I think she passed away pretty shortly after, but either way, dude, you're done when it's done. So, yep. That's the third wave. Tono Rat, love the work. You're done when it's done.